Enterprise AI adoption is accelerating rapidly, yet, the majority of AI pilots never reach full production deployment. Industry research consistently finds that more than 80% of enterprise AI projects stall between proof of concept and production, and practitioners call this a trap as a pilot purgatory. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving tech space. And I'm your host, Priya Diyalani. Now, this failure pattern is expensive and entirely preventable. The problem is rarely the AI technology itself. Instead, enterprise AI projects fail because of organizational data and governance gaps. These gaps surface only when teams attempt to scale beyond a control and experiment. Let's welcome Anand S, LLM psychologist at Straive, to help us understand how we can fix this problem and how content and knowledge infrastructure is becoming as critical as cloud and data platforms. Hi, Anand. A very warm welcome to our podcast today.
Hi, Priya. Thank you.
Great. So, Anand, without wasting much of our time, let's directly dive into our conversation today. But before we get into a core of our conversation, let's set the foundation and tell our listeners more about Strive, its specialization. And alongside that, we would also like to know more about you, Anand. How has the journey been till date? And I'm very much fascinated by you being calling yourself as LLM psychologist. So if you could give more idea about that and what's your role at the company today.
The shortest way to explain Strive is how Ankur, who is Strive CEO, puts it. We build AI and we run AI. Now, building AI is the exciting part, but running it is doing all the dirty work in the trenches, connecting to the messy data, making sure that it fits an actual workflow, putting control so that it doesn't totally mess up, making sure that it works even when other stuff breaks. And we put those two together. Operationalizing AI is how we call it. One way to think about it is the way IT and BPO and data analysis came together in an organization in the 2010s. We are bringing that sort of a combined model to AI deployments today. Me, I lead innovation at Strive, and in my opinion, it's the coolest work in the company. Basically, I play around with AI all day and share whatever useful things come out of it. LLM psychologist is the title I decided to pick for myself because most of my work involves just prodding LLMs left, right, and center, trying to see what they can do. One of my friends said, "Look, you should be calling yourself LLM psychopath, given how much you're torturing them," which is also true. But yeah, I basically day in and day out just explore LLMs.
Great. Thank you for that crisp overview and introduction about Strive and also about yourself, Anand. And we are really glad to get a better understanding of the company, its specialization. And this foundation gives us a great context for the conversation ahead. Great. Now, in the intro, I spoke about pilot purgatory, Anand, and it occurs when AI experiments demonstrate clear value in control conditions. However, they never successfully transition into full production deployment. The pilot looks impressive with clean data. In contrast, reality looks very different at enterprise scale. The gap between a successful pilot and a successful deployment is fundamentally an organizational readiness gap. Companies invest in impressive demos and control experiments. Consequently, then they discover they lack the data infrastructure and governance frameworks to operate AI at full enterprise scale. So, what misconceptions do you see business leaders having about what it actually takes to move AI from experimentation to actual production?
Let's say a project has three parts. You have to figure out what to do. You do it, and you have to make sure that it's working properly, testing it, deploying it, and all that. AI is very good at accelerating some parts of it. For instance, the creating the code part, it does a fantastic job of. A lot of people know how to do it these days. Therefore, the misconception that leaders often have is great, it can code it very quickly. So, my project, which earlier would have taken 6 months for it to take to production, now I can get it done into 6 weeks or 6 days. It would be true if all parts become equally fast, but the figuring out what to do has not become that much faster yet. The creating the code has become that much faster. The making sure that we've caught all the errors in it has not become that much faster. So, a 6 month project finds that the middle 2 months are now just 2 days. Great. But the remaining 4 months are still 4 months. For the pilot, people usually say, okay, I assume this is what we want. Let me deliver it and let me test it on some reasonably clean data or some data that I have. And does it work? It does. After that, the productionization normally takes time, continues to take that much time, and we haven't yet figured out how AI can accelerate that. I'm not saying AI can't accelerate it, we just don't know that well enough yet. Now, what AI can accelerate, what AI cannot accelerate, which of those parts are present in this project, which are not present in this project, is, to use your words, a misconception that leaders have. But I'm not sure I would call it a misconception. Even the people who are right in the thick of things in AI don't really know which of these will be true. How is a business leader expected to know it? Worse yet, this keeps changing on a day-to-day basis. If I tell a business leader something today, 2 months later, some new model has proven that wrong. Now, how are they expected to keep in touch with this? So, in short, I feel that many pilots fail because leaders believe that there is a uniform level of acceleration that AI provides. No, it is a jagged edge. Some areas much faster, some areas much less, and we don't really know which is which. Second, this is a moving jagged edge. And what is true yesterday is no longer true today, literally. Therefore, moving things is hard. But the good part is it's continuously increasing. It's not improving. It's not worsening. So more and more of the things that started off as pilots 6 months ago are moving into production today.
That's a really important perspective, Anand. And it's interesting because we are seeing a lot of organizations proudly announce AI initiatives, but far fewer are actually generating measurable business outcomes from them. And there's often a significant gap between experimenting with AI and embedding it with day to day business operations at scale. And again, moving from proof of concept to production requires more than just choosing the right AI model. We have to give a lot of thought to the right data foundation, infrastructure, talent, a clear business strategy that aligns with AI, again, considering the organizational goals. Um, Without these elements working together, even the most promising AI pilots can struggle to deliver long term value. Great. Moving ahead, Anand, so I think now let's just consider a scenario that, a company rolls out an AI powered customer service assistant. At first, it's impressive. Customers ask questions in plain English and the assistant responds instantly. But soon, frustration sets in. It gives different answers to the same question. It sometimes hallucinates facts that don't exist. When pressed for details, it gets stuck or provides vague replies. I think this sort of situation is pretty familiar for a lot of our listeners as well. The core issue is not always the AI model itself, but the absence of a structured enterprise grade knowledge base. In such cases, AI assistants are forced to rely on fragmented sources, which are like scattered documents or outdated databases or incomplete integrations, which ultimately lead to such unreliable outcomes. So, why is content and knowledge infrastructure emerging as a critical foundation for enterprise AI, and how is it different from the traditional data infrastructure?
The why part you pretty much answer, which is if I have documents scattered all over, I have some integration with some source system that is not even complete. Humans also struggle. call up a call center. Person says, sorry, sir, this payment system is not working, so I can't figure out what your latest transaction is. AI says exactly the same thing. Or worse yet, as is hallucinating and giving you an answer. Now, why? It's broadly been trained to be as helpful as possible. Tell a call center agent somehow help the customer and give them an answer. The human agent will also be as helpful. And we haven't yet figured out the training process yet for agents to make sure that, look, if you don't know, say you don't know. That is worse than giving the wrong answer. We are in that process. So what you said, uh, which is the knowledge base is fragmented, we have scattered documents, etc., is why it is important, because it is broken today. But the interesting thing that I'm finding, which is different from what it used to be earlier, is agents are reasonably good at consolidating these. So, for instance, I have a Straive Google Drive, lots and lots of documents, meaning tens of thousands of documents. So I pointed Codex and OpenAI's coding agent at the Google Drive and said, go through all of these and create one folder which has the summaries of each of these files, just one sentence. Now, what that lets an agent do, and what I mean by an agent is tomorrow, if I tell ChatGPT, go through my Google Drive, it will find it hard. But if I tell it, look, I have this folder where you just have maybe about 200 kilobytes of, for each file, a one-line explanation of what it has. Use that as a quick reference first, and then see which files you need to look at. It seems to be doing a much better job, which is exactly like giving a call center agent an index saying, go through this first, see which of these sources you need to refer and pull it. The difference being that we don't have to create it manually. The agent is able to do a decent job of creating it. That is advantage number one that we have. The training syllabus, or at least an index, it creates. Second, we can tell it, go through all of the previous call transcripts. Where are the agents totally messing up? Where are the agents doing a good job? Look at what documentation they refer to. Are they referring to the correct documentation, or are they going off on the wrong track? Why are they going off onto the wrong track? And give me advice on how I should be reorganizing the documentation so that the agent does a better job. Again, it seems to be doing a reasonable job of it. Now, how do we know if this advice is actually good or not? Again, we can tell the agent, look, some other agent has given me this consulting exercise advice saying if I make all of these changes to my documentation, then it will be able to answer better. What I want you to do is take 200 questions that real customers have asked that my agents have messed up. Now you create the new documentation in a different directory and create a new agent, copying exactly the same agent, but different documentation, and ask the same questions. Is it really doing better? If not, try another experiment, another folder, another documentation style, try another experiment, and so on. Which means that we can do three things. One, we can use agents to improve the documentation. We can use agents to figure out how to improve the documentation. We can use agents to figure out whether it improved the documentation. And because these don't require too much human effort, they can all run in parallel on the side as side projects so that the agents can train the agents to do better. Now, is this really happening in production? How often? Not much. Why? Because the models are just getting about as smart. The harnesses, that is, the agents, are getting about as smart to be able to do it. People are just now beginning to get an awareness that it can happen. It's still not always working well. But the good part is it's cheaper than a human doing it. So this is also growing. So yes, knowledge-based structuring is very important. What's different is that agents are able to do it increasingly better.
Thank you for that great overview, Anand. And I think, yes, one of the biggest takeaways is that AI is only as effective as the knowledge it can access. For years, enterprises have focused on collecting and storing massive volumes of data. But I mean, back then also, and now we are also realizing that simply having data isn't enough. The real differentiator is whether that information is organized, contextualized, and readily available for AI systems to understand and act upon. And as more organizations embed AI into their everyday operation, this foundation will likely become one of the biggest determinants of success. Great. Moving ahead, my next question, Anand, is particularly about considering the global capability centers, considering India, Indian landscape. I mean, we all understand that AI is now becoming the backbone of contemporary business landscape, and it's powering various aspects of enterprise operations, ranging from streamlined workforce to enriched customer experiences. Now, there are many factors spearheading this change, and among them, one of the biggest is the emergence of global capability centers, particularly in India. So, what are your views as to how are these India-led capability centers contributing to the development of governed, scalable, and enterprise-grade AI workflows?
Got you. I'm going to do a bit of an aside, Priya. I noticed that you paused between questions, which is pretty clever because I think that allows you to do the editing well, which is a really cool thing. I'll
Mhm.
come back to the GCC question with a pause.
Mm.
But before we move on to the next topic, if you don't
Mm.
mind, can I reverse the interview for, say, a minute? I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. You have interviewed leaders across very different industries. I'm
Mhm.
curious regarding the moving of AI from pilots to production.
Mm.
What small, what are the little details in an answer
Mm.
convinces you that somebody is actually moving stuff from pilot to production on AI?
A very good question, I must say, Anand. But I think when I ask this question, and the kind of responses I get, first of all, are varied. I mean, everybody comes along with different perspectives and their experiences for that matter. But I think something that usually always boils down is the data, like how responsibly you're using your data, the kind of quality of data you have, and what are the certain governance and security frameworks you are implementing, ensuring the data security. So considering that, and of course the kind of experiences when the person shares, that confidence, or that integrity as to how they answer the question, I think sometimes that kind of clicks me. Okay, this is something really important, and this is something that is makes sense and is of importance.
Interesting.
I mean, how do you think that the GCCs in India, particularly, are contributing to some, great AI workflows, I think, all over the globe and not just India? So probably the governance scalable are the additions in the question, but my entire question is something that how, or I mean, how do you think India is positioned well enough to contribute to some of the
Mhm.
impact, overall global AI impact?
Which is fair. Yeah, I think most people are comfortable with the opinion that uh, India is not at the forefront of creating new models, with
Mm.
very few exceptions. And that's all right. Our strength has been on the services side. The GCCs are a great representation of that.
Mhm.
And in a way, I think it's a good thing because a few models will win. The best models will win. And the services side of things has a longer tail, which I suspect will last longer. AI will replace human capability in most areas. Some
Mhm.
areas it will not be able to simply because you're talking to a human and a human responds to a human in a better way than to an AI. And that relational aspect is closer to the services side of things,
Mhm.
which GCCs are well positioned to leverage. So, at least from that perspective, I think India's GCCs are somewhat protected. Now, contributing, here's my thought. The notion of forward deployed engineers is becoming more and more popular. The definition is not yet, I guess, consensus, but
Mhm.
the idea seems to be you have someone who takes AI in their laptop in some shape or form, sits with somebody on the business side, and solves their problem.
Mhm.
One big difference here seems to be the proactivity. That is, earlier, somebody on the business side would say, I have this problem, can you solve it? Somebody on the GCC side says, okay, here is a proposal, here is how much it will cost, here is how long it will take, here is a solution. An alternate model that seems to be possible is, here's my guy, he's going to work with you, and this person sits with their laptop next to the business person and says, hey, look, you asked me for problem number one. Huh, I'll solve that. By the way, I had my agent run through all of your logs. For example, let's say they're working with somebody on the HR side and says, what I found is that the 100% team that you run is approximately using AI. Only 30% of the people are using AI even once in a week, and 5% of them are using it on a daily basis. These are the people who are actively able to use it. Would you like some training for these? Is a problem identification scenario, something that the business user may not have thought of.
Right.
Or take another real scenario. A waste management company and a forward deployed engineer looks at this and says, look, I just happen to be looking at all the payments and your services normally cost somewhere between $175 to $179. It's a very tight range. But I found 104,000 transactions last month, which had a bill of 16 cents.
Hmm.
That is 1/10 1,000th of the amount. Either we have a data problem or there is a massive underbilling, which is not likely. Shouldn't we look at this? These are examples where a forward deployed engineer based in a GCC with access to the internal data that the company has can proactively identify use cases. But it doesn't end there because thanks to AI agents being able to do a lot of work, the way I see it, it's like having 1,000 PhDs sitting in your pocket as interns. Now, if you have that kind of capacity, you can turn one agent loose at one problem, another agent loose at another problem. Heck, you can turn 10 agents loose at the same problem.
Right.
Well, maybe one of them will solve it, maybe none of them will solve it. Big deal, it doesn't cost that much. And when you find a solution, you just deliver it.
Hmm.
So, the notion that a GCC runs a business gently changes to, I mean, when I say runs, I mean more operates the back end of a business, gently changes to, they're also proactively identifying problems that can improve the business. They are also proactively executing against it, meaning they're just solving the problems because agents are giving them extended capacity and therefore become a catalyst to accelerate the business using AI.
Right.
If India-led GCCs are able to go in that direction, then we have established the next generation of the equivalent of the IT services model that started in the 90s.
True, true, Anand. And yes, again, if you talk about India-led capability centers, it's clearly evolving beyond their traditional execution role, and they're more becoming strategic innovation hubs where AI solutions are being tested and scaled for global organizations. And I think again that cross-functional collaboration is becoming just as important as the technological innovation itself. Great. Moving ahead, Anand. Now, when we talk about deploying these AI models into production, I think yet for every AI success story that's making headlines, dozens of initiatives are still quietly, stalling after the pilot phase. And we discussed, what are certain things or challenges that usually organization face in terms of moving beyond the pilot stage. And sometimes they also lack a well-defined AI deployment strategy. So, what are some common patterns you observe when enterprises begin deploying their AI in production environments? Like some repetitive patterns you feel which can be referred to as mistakes or the wrongdoings when they are deploying their AI in the production environment.
Repetitive patterns in what you said, I think, is probably the most interesting part of that question. Let me take a shot. I'll certainly give examples and see if I can generalize that into the patterns.
Hmm.
Let's take one example. The client said we want to scrape a large number of sites to make sure whether a particular person is mentioned there or not. When I say large number of sites, I'm talking about 50,000 websites. Now, across these websites, they will definitely make updates and change their structure. Pre-AI, this is not a project that we would have taken up. Post-AI, we said, let's give it a shot. Now, AI is able to create these scrapers, 15,000 scrapers.
Mm.
Costs some money, but obviously a lot cheaper than a human building 15,000 scrapers, which should have been impossible time-wise and cost-wise, or impractical at least. But once it goes into production, every day a dozen sites fail because they've changed since then, or the site is down or whatever. When building it, this is not something that we factored in. So what can we do?
Mm.
This is one example. If we have not factored in that these can change or fail, that will cause a problem. But once it goes into production, then the next step is possibly how can we use agents to manage the production system? And this is slightly new. What I mean by that is in 2025, this is not as practical as it is today. Why? Because coding agents starting around November 25 became much better, far less error prone. Earlier, we would have had to tell an agent to build a scraper for a site,
Mm.
test it carefully, make sure that it works, move on to the next, which means that the team is not doing the coding, they're just doing the testing. And even the tests are somewhat automatically written. It just goes to the website, verifies, and the person says, oh, okay, yeah, you need to make this change for the site, etc. Now the coding agents don't make that kind of a mistake.
Mm.
So what the person needs to do is say something like, go through these 15,000 agents, these sites today, and wherever it fails, log it, find out what failed, and rewrite your own scraper, rerun it until it's fixed. Even there may be things that the agent is not able to anticipate. It may, for instance, be diligently trying and retrying and retrying until the human says, boss, that site has actually been taken down. Please add one more instruction to yourself saying, if the site is taken down, tell me, don't break your head against a wall.
Mm.
Those sorts of things a human is still needed for, but
Right.
the failure is a little smaller. Now, the repeatable pattern here, as I see it, is it's not just the construction, but the operationalization that can also be AI agentized, so to speak.
Mm.
And this, once people start seeing, moving into production environments becomes easy. If they assume, however, that AI is going to automate the production of software or any system and then take it to production without AI support, at that point, the amount of human intervention that is required there starts becoming too unaffordable. Another, uh, uh, let me generalize that one step further.
Mm.
Traditional software fails like a machine. AI often fails more like a very smart, strange person. Person in the sense that if we assume that the software is more a set of instructions we are giving to a person and the kind of mistakes that a person would make, it's a better mental model than treating it as repeatable or deterministic software. But unfortunately, it's also a very strange person, very different culture, and we need some time to get used to the ways in which agents fail. And this is another typical mental model mismatch that we are yet to learn.
Right, right, Anand. And I think, what I could actually understand is that deploying AI is just only the starting point. The real challenge and often the real value emerges once these systems are operating in live production environments, interacting with real users and real data, and constantly evolving business requirements. And despite any industry that you pick, many enterprises seem to encounter remarkably similar patterns. Whether we are talking about data quality or user adoption or the need for continuous monitoring, AI implementation quickly becomes as much about organizational readiness and operational discipline as it is about the technology itself. And with that, in mind, Anand, my next follow-up question is something related to what we can do probably to, overcome these patterns that we witness. I mean, every leadership team I speak with seems to be, wrestling with the same question. Not whether AI will affect their business. I think that debate is largely over. Not whether they should invest in AI because most of them already have. I think the question is far more practical. It is, where should we start? The uncertainty is very much understandable because over the past 2 years, executives, a lot of AI professionals have been, bombarded with a lot of advice. But if I had to ask this question to you, for an organization who is just beginning its AI transformation, what should it prioritize before investing in AI tools or models?
Short answer would be experimenting. Don't begin with an AI strategy. Instead, tell teams, is there a workflow that you have where you can ask AI to improve it
Mm,
and accept failure and generate multiple options? What does that mean? Here's what I, as a leader, would tell some of my team members. Is there any place where you happen to be using AI? They say, yes, yes, I'm using it. Great, very good. Any
mm,
improvements that you're seeing? And then continue the discussion in that direction. They say not yet. I just ask any opportunities that you see. Some will say no. That's okay. Once we start shoving AI down people's throat, then it becomes, oh, I have to do this. What can I do to get my boss off my back? And it's already happening. Let them be. There'll be some people who say, oh, yeah, I can think of a few things. You say, great. Except if AI is doing the work, then why are you trying only one thing? Try
mm,
five things now. Ask for five solutions. One of them will click. Ask, solve five problems. One of them will click.
mm,
And they will try. Maybe all five will fail. At which point, as a leader, I would tell them, it's okay. You were doing it on the side.
mm,
If it didn't work, it didn't cost too much. Some tokens, it's okay. Like productionize it, we'll worry about token cost. When experimenting, what is the big deal? Try something else. Some of them will say, oh, but I can't think of something else. To which I'll say, great, ask AI. Now you've found a problem. Your problem is I don't know how AI can improve my business.
mm,
AI knows how it can do things. It knows your business. If not, just point it to whatever documents you have or talk to it and explain your business and have it give you ideas. Worst case, it'll give you rubbish ideas. You wasted 5 minutes. Big deal.
mm,
One of those ideas might click. Then you ask it to solve it.
mm,
And once you've solved it, I would say, look, is this the only solution? What other solutions are there?
mm,
Instead of one, ask for 10. Once they say, yeah, I think this one is working, then I will start cross questioning. Is this right? How do we know it's really generating value? Ask it. Put another way, because generation is cheap, experimentation has become cheap. And I would ask for 10 in the place of one. I would allow all 10 to be failures. And therefore, it's it's kind of like fountains. There
mm,
was a time when water needed to be conserved, and it became really important that you don't waste it on things like fountains. But over time, technology in many urban infrastructures became so efficient that water became cheap. And turning on a fountain, having small little pools, etc., meant that these cities' infrastructure, aesthetics, etc., could become so much better. And small pockets of communities started valuing fountains a lot more, gave people pleasure. People started being able to use water for many other things that they would not have otherwise considered. It became a spending. It's not something you meter so much. When uh, you have tokens becoming cheaper and cheaper, that point, I think we also need to make a small mindset shift, saying software, therefore, is also becoming cheaper
mm,
and systems are becoming cheaper. So let's adopt that abundance mentality. No pressure. It's all right if people don't waste water. It's all right if people don't waste tokens. But if you start using it in creative ways, it's better than you wasting all the carbon and energy through your sweat and blood instead of using tokens more efficiently.
yeah. True. I think that was a very valuable perspective, Anand. And I think, it's a very important reminder that successful AI adoption isn't just about choosing the right tools or having the right models. It's about building the right foundation first. And it's very important that we have the right culture set in place to embrace that change and to ensure that what you just mentioned, that, just experiment, keep on experimenting. There will be errors, there will be mistakes, but those are again learnings, and then that's how you will, you will struggle to deliver meaningful result, but it also highlights that AI transformation is as much a people and a strategy challenge than just a technology initiative. Well, thank you so much, Anand, for your insights today. It was, organizations that ultimately create the most value from AI are unlikely to be those that launch the greatest number of pilots or deploy the largest number of tools. I think they will be the organization whose leaders develop the clearest understanding of the future. They were trying to create and align the enterprise around that vision. And again, with your insights, it's very important that we learn that every enterprise AI needs that knowledge base, not tomorrow, but today itself. So, thank you so much for your insights. It was lovely chatting with you, Anand.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Great. So, this is for our listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion around how you can probably scale your enterprise initiatives beyond the pilot stage, and ensuring that you're not stuck in the pilot phase, and scaling your enterprise initiatives successfully, responsibly, also sustainably. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, and you can view all our previous episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Thank you so much.